Scott, one of my friend's cousins, he said that he's 18 and he's totally prepared. He's flying with Su-35. He was trained and he's prepared to go to fight. And there are many of them. I talked with him. He didn't answer all of my questions, but for me, it was when he told me that he's 18 and he's fully prepared. I was thinking, how long does it take for these people to get prepared for that sort of mission?
Well, the
Because
Basij have been around. The Basij is. I can't answer that question directly, but I know that you know, teenagers. I remember when I went to Iran, and I went. In northern Tehran, you can go up. There's like a ski resort up there, and it's sort of cool. You can go up there and take a look at the view, and you're not allowed to take pictures of the big electronic
they
warfare
call it
facility.
Kuchal. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big electronic warfare facility that you have to pretend doesn't exist. Can't take a picture, so you're click, click, oh, click, click, and there's people watching you. I was surrounded by busloads of Basij, who, it was interesting. I was escorted by a Revolutionary Guard minder. He was my interpreter, spoke great, nice guy, but he was honest. He said, "No, I'm Revolutionary Guard. Sorry, Scott, but we like you, but we don't necessarily trust you." And so I'm here. And we were walking around, but the two busloads, I think, of Basij came out, and it became apparent that I was an American, and there was the beginning of some chanting that was starting to get organized, and they were getting worked up. And he went over and talked to their the leader, whoever the senior person was, and they quickly got that under control. And we actually finished the afternoon with some handshakes, as opposed to what it could have been. They wouldn't have hurt me, but I think it could have gotten unpleasant. But my point is, these were kids, teenagers, who are being imbued with a sense of patriotism, Islamic fervor. To remember, it's the Islamic Republic for a reason. Islam plays a factor, and so they were, fervent in their religion, fervent in their patriotism. 18, you said to be Su-35 pilot. That's young. Maybe he's flown on simulators. Maybe he's done something. I don't know, but normally, again, I hate to impose the Western model, because during World War II and even after that, all the way up until the 60s, I guess, we could have sergeant pilots or something like that in the Air Force. You could graduate high school and go to cadet candidate school, or the Air Cadets in San Antonio. My father did it out of high school, and you pass program, and you get to fly. You become a pilot, and then later on in your career, you try and get your degree, and you can get promoted up. But you could fly until you're captain. I think you maxed out as majors where you could go. Then they did away with that in the 60s, and everybody had to be a college graduate. But it's possible that you could join a high school. In the Soviet Union, it's something called DOSAAF, DOSAAF. Don't ask me what it stands for, but I just remember DOSAAF. But it was, again, for high school students to go, and they could go do military drills, learn how to disassemble an AK-47, reassemble it, da da da. But I would imagine that if you were technically proficient, you can learn about communication sets. You can learn about Morse code, how to take apart radios, put radios back together again. And this was in the 80s and 70s, so maybe not. But today, there's flight simulators that you could get in as a high school student. You can go join a flying club and take off a little Piper Cub and fly around and learn how to the basics of it, but then land and get into an Su-35 simulator and practice missions. So maybe that's what he meant by that. But to me, the Su-35 is a very advanced aircraft, and to be a good pilot isn't just simulator. You have to understand aerodynamics. I remember, even as an aerial observer, I was trained as an aerial observer in backseat of an OV-10 and an OA-4. A large part of the training just involved basic, the the dynamics of flight, in math and weather and airspeed. Because believe it or not, they did train us to fly them. We weren't pilots, didn't want to be. But if the pilot, it was a dual control aircraft. If the pilot got hit, pilots sort of wanted us to be able to land it, because if we ejected, we went out. He didn't. He died. If he ejects, we both go out. So they taught us that, but they taught it as a matter of principle. You were in the air. You were an aviator, and so you had to learn that. And I would imagine that to fly an Su-35, that kind of, you're going to have to go through more formal training. But it does point to the fact that the Iranians are doing, I believe, like DOSAF type military preparation for their for high school students, so that by the time they're 18, they're ready to get plugged in. Because it'll be easier for him. Let's say he wants to be a pilot, to get plugged in now. He has simulator time. He understands, the basics of flight. And so, he's better positioned to succeed in flight training, shorter time frame preparation, I guess. I don't know. All speculation on my part.
Yeah.
I should make that clear.
And that makes sense to me. I think that's a good speculation on your part. Scott, we know that Netanyahu doesn't want Iran to be a normal country for the United States. When I say a normal country, because I see no reason that the United States and Iran should be the enemy of each other. And this doesn't make sense to me, unless you consider Israel as your main policymakers when it comes to the Middle East. Israel decides what would be the policy of the United States in the Middle East. That is the whole reason that I think Netanyahu is trying to do that. He's trying
but
to
not just Israel. I mean, this. I've been reading your tweets. You saw there's a huge Iranian diaspora here in the United States that is pro-Shah. I mean, these are people whose fathers fled in the 1970s. I used to know many of them. I mean, the fact is, we became friends with. It got a little tense when I went to Iran in 2005. But there was a guy who, former helicopter pilot in the Royal Iranian Air Force, ran a pizza shop right down here, and nice guy and everything. But boy, he hated the Islamic Republic, and he was all about the Shah. But when you talk to him, because I came back and I'm like, it's not as bad as you say it is. It's actually, the people there seem to like the government. Ahmadinejad was elected, but there's a lot of people that are critical of Ahmadinejad. Free speech is sort of a thing. I mean, it was amazing. And they don't care. They're blind, and they have political power, and they've been empowered by the United States. I mean, just take a look at Reza Shah, the Shah's son. The man's a nobody, literally a nobody. He has no viability on the ground in Iran. He has no real political power here at home other than a name. We give him political power by pretending that he could be something that he never will be, the leader of Iran. And then this shapes all of the propaganda. I mean, I just did a show with Al-Mayadeen yesterday, and there was a professor, Robbins, I think his last name was. I was surprised because I thought, well, okay, now they have two Americans who are going to say, rational things. But, when his term came, all those demonstrators are in the streets yesterday, hundreds of thousands, filling millions total across the country. They're all apparently paid by the Iranian government to be there. These are paid demonstrators who are either paid there or they go there because they're afraid of the consequences. This is what a professor of an American university said, which shows you how corrupted the American university system is about the reality of Iran. How can you get someone real? You would not be allowed here in the United States to teach about Iran, because the second they hired you, the university would be contacted by all these groups threatening to withhold funds because they've created a little alliance and they're very big with the Zionists. So the first thing is, the Iranian groups would call you up, and then the Zionists call you up. Funds are threatened, and next thing you know, your professorship is withdrawn. We can only bring in Trita Parsi. Now, Trita Parsi, is allowed to come. He's never been in Iran, Doesn't, I mean, I don't even know if he speaks it. Maybe I'm not going to denigrate him too much. He might speak, Farsi. But, I've known him for a while. And when I first met him, he carries himself very seriously. He always has a serious look on his face. And you have to say, well, then he must be a serious man. He's dumber than dirt about the reality of Iran. And the things he writes are just plain stupid. And again, my job's not to be a diplomat. I don't have to sit on any boards with him. Well, actually, I do. So maybe I have to retract that, or I'll be called to retract it. You can't call a board member stupid. Well, what if he is stupid? Oh, play politics, Scott. But he's stupid. I mean, he writes for what is it? RS, Responsible Statecraft. He's their Iran expert. He's an apologist for all the crap that's going on right now. He breathes life into the lies about the demonstrators, and he denigrates. If I hear another person refuse to acknowledge that Iran is a functioning, viable democracy, I mean, it just kills me when I hear the stupidity of people. It's a theocracy governed by brutal theocratic Ayatollah dictators. Well, there are brutal dictators. I mean, not dictators, but Ayatollahs. I'm not going to deny it. There's some people in that Ministry of Justice bother me. Hanging judges, they hang on. I'm like, no, guys, you can't do that. But Iran is working on this. At the demonstrations yesterday in defense of the regime, women were out there without hijabs, and they weren't being harassed at all. Why? Because the Iranian people spoke. What happens? What do you call a society where if the people speak and the government listens to them and they do this speaking through, say, elections? It's a democracy. Iran is a viable democracy. Their parliament is elected through democratic principles. The president is democratically elected. The assembly of experts, aren't they the ones that pick the next, isn't their job that they monitor the supreme leader? And then if the supreme leader is unable to function or remove, they already have somebody picked up and all that. Aren't they elected?
Yeah, they're elected.
The answer is yes, they are elected. So the assembly of experts, the people who manage the supreme leader, are elected by the people of Iran. Yeah. So I just, people need to understand it's a different kind of government. It doesn't operate the way we operate. What about the Guardian Council? They put that religious litmus test. It is the Islamic Republic, after all. So I would imagine that there could be an Islamic litmus test. But in America, we have the Jewish money litmus test. I'm sorry, I'm going to be called anti-Semitic, but I'm just going to call it out. If you don't get Jewish money, you're in trouble. If you don't get money, you're in trouble. But if you're in New York, it's got to be Jewish money. Florida, Jewish money. Around the country, Jewish money. Just look at all the money that goes to the AIPAC funds. And again, I'm not anti-Jewish. I'm just stating the reality. When AIPAC openly brags about spending $100 million to buy the United States Congress, that's a Jewish money litmus test. And I don't care who you are. If you want to run for Congress, unless you're in a very special district, you need to go through the Jewish money. Yeah, I did. I didn't want to run for Congress, but I was, what was his name? The former quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, who was the Secretary of Housing, Kemp. He was the head of the Republican Party's Congressional Recruitment Office, or whatever the hell he called it. And I got the phone call, Scott, we want you to run for Congress. And they put me in Westchester, New York. They brought me to this mansion. And there were literally hundreds of people. And he said, they're all here to write checks. They were all Jewish. And they were just ready to write checks to make me the next member of Congress from the state of New York. And I'm like, you guys already got Gilman, because I lived there was a representative named Gilman. He was a very conservative, guy. And I said, you already got Gilman. I mean, you're not going to replace Gilman with me. Oh no, Scott, we're going to put you up in another district. I mean, I said, so you're going to take me to a place in New York that I don't live in? Yeah. Well, how would the people know who I am? Oh, you're a great American. I said, how do you know? I mean, you don't know anything I did in the military, because almost everything I did was top secret and couldn't talk about it. You just know I was in the military and I got some medals and I got good fitness reports and all that stuff. But you don't know what I did in the military. You know nothing about me. You don't even know what I did in Iraq, because at that time, there was a lot I still couldn't talk about. And so I asked him, I said, Well, he asked me 2 questions, and I could just see Kemp going, don't do it, don't do it. You and they're going to write checks. Jewish money, Jewish money, Jewish money. Don't do it. I said, 2 questions. They said, what question? I said, well, ask me about abortion and gun control. These are the 2 big Republican things. And they went, Kemp's like, oh, God, no. They said, well, Scott, what's your opinion on abortion? I said, look, I'm the father of twin daughters, and I couldn't imagine the world without them. Couldn't imagine the world without them. And they're all smiling. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, so no, I personally, I don't believe in abortion. I believe every life is precious. Every life should be brought into this world. I said, but I'm not giving birth to the baby. There's another vote out there that has to be listened to. We can't silence the people that actually carry the baby, give birth to the baby. We have to listen to them. What's their opinion? My opinion doesn't veto theirs. They're like, well, what are you saying? I said, well, I'm saying that people should have a choice. That's just the reality of it. Maybe we can regulate the choice. Oh, they didn't like that. They said, gun control. So I'm a gun owner. Come to my house. I got a shotgun. I had 2 shotguns. I have a 9mm pistol. You come to my house and I'm trained to kill you. I said, I was in the Marine Corps. I love to shoot weapons. I mean, I'm good at it. I was double expert, the whole thing. I said, but I just think that maybe these are lethal weapons and people should have to have certification and training in their operation like we do with cars. You want to drive a car, get a license, qualify. They walked away. That the Jewish money checks for Scott Ritter dissipated, and Kemp would just sit there pulling his hair out going, he said, you're an honorable man, but you're dumber than dirt. You could have been in Congress. And my wife said the same thing, because we now know that Congress is where you go when you make $48,000 a year, and 2 years later, you're worth $70 million. And if you stayed in Congress for 10 years, you could be worth $200 million. So it was one of the worst mistakes I've ever made in my life from a business perspective. But my point is, we come about litmus tests in Iran. Money is a litmus test in America. If you don't understand it, then you don't understand anything American politics. We don't live in a democracy. Because if we live in a democracy, it's not just the people's ability to vote, but it's the people's ability to pick the candidates they want to vote for. And we don't have any say in that. None. They are picked for us. Committees pick them. And the committees pick them because people with money say, that's who I want. That's who I want. And next thing we go to the election booth, we pull the curtain open and there's a piece of paper and we're exercising our democratic power and we're voting for people we don't know anything about. Come on, guys, be honest if you're an American. When you go down that ballot, especially on a national election day, you may know the president, because not everybody does. You may know who you're voting for. Your senator, you should know. Your congressman, I'd say 50% of people have no clue who their congressman is. They just go down there and go, oh, okay, I'll vote. Now you get down into all those other things you're voting for. You don't know any of those people, and you didn't have a say in any of those people getting put on there. You're just clicking because they say Democrat, Republican, or you like the sound of their name, or they're Italian and you're Italian, or they're German and you're German, or they're. So stop it pointing fingers at Iran. The Iranians, I love their national system. You get a limited amount of time to run. Everybody has the same access to the press. Everybody has to go to the same debates, and then the people vote. And I wish we did that here instead of this 2-year, announce your candidacy, raise money. It's all about money, 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 money. If you don't have money, you can't participate. Anyways, sorry, I went off on a little tangent.
Scott, I think many of our audience are interested in your assessment on the fragility of the situation in the Middle East. Here is what Donald Trump said on Fox News.
Would Iran, with this current regime, would ever really stick?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know one thing. They want to make a deal. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want. But some people worry that they've been very dishonest with us over the years, right? Very dishonest. Obama and Biden What they did in terms of creating a monster with Iran was terrible. That Iran nuclear deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen.
I mean, this guy's entertaining. I want to make a deal. As soon as he talks like that, they don't want to make a deal. That's just him trying to sound impressive. First of all, deal. Karen Knissel is the former Austrian foreign minister who today lives in St. Petersburg, Russia. And she heads what's called the Gorky Institute. She hates the term deal. She calls it the language of the mafia. The mafioso make a deal. Criminals make deals. Deals are meant to be broken, and they are broken continuously. Gentlemen make agreements, and nations make treaties. And Donald Trump doesn't talk about agreements or treaties. A deal. They want to make a deal. No, they don't. They're only going to talk to me. No, they talk to everybody. They talk to Biden. They made a deal with Obama. It had to be a deal because Congress wouldn't ratify a treaty. And look what happened. The deal got broken. Donald Trump can't keep a deal because it's a deal. A deal is not a two-way street.
Yeah.
A deal is a one-way street. Listen to Donald Trump. Yeah, I'm ready to make a deal, but they got to commit suicide by giving up their missiles. They got to neuter themselves by saying that they're not politically relevant in a region. What stupidity. Iran's the biggest country in the region. And you're saying they're not allowed to project their sphere of influence, their sphere of interest, that the only ones that can is Israel, this tiny little pathetic strip of land. They're the only ones who get to project power, project it. Iran can't. It's stupid. And then, nuclear. Nuclear was a bad deal. You don't know anything about that deal. I tell you, Donald Trump is a stupid man, a fundamentally stupid man. He might have some inherent, business common sense, and he might have, he has the bully's appreciation of diplomacy. I mean, even a bully knows when he wakes up in the morning. If I go to the playground and I posture big, little Tommy might back up and not, and do what I want. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. But one day you're going to go to the playground and posture and Tommy's going to go, bam. Now what does a bully do? Because his brain don't work. Donald Trump is a physical and moral coward. Just telling you right now, a physical and moral coward. Couldn't win a fist fight. Well, first of all, he's too old to fight. But back in the day when he said how he could take Joe Biden back and whip him, no, you couldn't because you're a coward. I'm not saying Biden would beat you up because I think Biden was a coward too. But the point is, one day you're going to say something. And one thing, back when I used to hang out with Delta Force, I was taught one thing in a bar, in a biker bar, where we left because bikers were getting loud and boisterous and they were walking out. And I said, why are we leaving? I said, we could take it. I said, Scott, we got security clearances that would get pulled the second we got into a bar fight. Okay. We don't exist to get in bar fights. We don't exist to posture tough for these people. We exist to do a mission. And these people are making it uncomfortable. We leave. Then he said, but the other thing, and this guy was very physically fit. He said, it's a good lesson for you. Every bar you walk into, just assume that there's one person in the bar that can kick your ass, and you have no idea who it is. And if you treat everybody as if they can kick your ass, you'll avoid getting into a lot of trouble. Donald Trump is a coward. He's not that smart. He's a physical coward. He's a moral coward. He will never do the right thing. He's a greedy, greedy, greedy man. He's also an out-of-control narcissist. I mean, renaming the Trump Kennedy Center. I mean, this is a mental illness. Making a phone call to Schumer to get the Moynihan train station renamed the Donald Trump train station. I forget what else he wanted to get renamed. He's a narcissist. I mean, everything. I mean, if I said Zanguzar corridor to you, you'd know what that is. But do you recognize it as what the heck do they call it? The Trump TRIPP, whatever, prosperity plan or something. Why does Trump's name have to be on it? Because this is all he knows. He's the bully, he's a brander. When before he ran for president the first term, if you took the train into New York City, or you drove into New York City, as you're coming down the Henry Hudson Highway or whatever, there were a series of buildings there before you got to, around the 58th Street, and they all had Trump on it. Trump Tower, Trump this, Trump that, Trump Palace, Trump, 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 Trump. And you're thinking, wow, Donald Trump owns a lot of property. He didn't own shit. Excuse my language. He just branded it. He told people, you can use my name, and they put Trump on there, and then they can increase their rents by so much, and then he gets a percentage of it. That's his. So right now he's around branding everything. This is the president of the United States branding things, not saying the American deal. I mean, I can understand, the American peace plan. All right, you got a ring to it. America did this. The American Kennedy senator. All right, I could go for that. America, good. But he doesn't care about America. He doesn't care about America. He cares. This is a cult of personality, literally in every way, shape, or form, a cult of personality. Now we come back to where we started at the beginning. If people don't understand this, you're too stupid to live. If the Iranians don't understand they're dealing with a dictator who operates as a cult of personality, you're not dealing with an American president. No American president operates this way. No American president should operate this way. And hopefully after the end of this disaster, if we can survive, no American president will operate this way. Congress needs to take control. But this is a cult of personality. This is a sick man, a mentally ill man. And the consequences could be dire, he is boxing America into corners with his mouth. I mean, everywhere. Greenland. I'm going to invade Greenland. No, you're not. Now I got to find an off-ramp because I talk too much. Iran. Look at the Iranians. They called his bluff on everything. You're going to meet in Istanbul. No, we're not. Did you hear the State Department spokesperson when they confronted with that? We never thought the Iranians would say no. Really? You didn't think the Iranians would say no? You think you have leverage over Iran? You think you have any leverage over Iran? You have no leverage over Iran. None. The only leverage Iran has is the leverage it has over itself. The responsibility of a government that cares about its people enough to try and avoid a war. The Iranians would have every right now to take Israel off the face of the earth, citing preemptive self-defense. Article 51, the Caroline Doctrine, Iran right now could justify and get away with it to take Israel out because Israel's made threats. Iran could sink the Abraham Lincoln and blow up all the American facilities in the region and say, we have a right. Because Trump is saying, I'm going to hit you. I'm bombing you. I'm getting ready to bomb you. Well, does Iran have to sit there and wait for the United States to bomb? The imminence of the threat has been manifested by the expressions of the commander-in-chief. But Iran doesn't do that. Why? Because Iran knows the following. They will inflict horrific harm on Israel, and they will inflict horrific harm on the Americans, but horrific harm will be inflicted on the Iranian people. And so the Iranian people are fortunate to have a government that loves them enough not to get them involved in a war that can be avoided by pretending to engage in diplomacy with a nation that doesn't even know what diplomacy is anymore. We don't know what diplomacy is anymore. We don't practice it.